You're listening to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman on the Land of Israel Network.
Hello and welcome to Inside Israel Today here on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com, where there are only 6 weeks left ahead of our election, believe it or not. And yet, after my success last week in speaking about not politics, I think I might start my show not with politics this week, too. Last week, the second half of the show, which is much more popular than the first part of the show, was about The Lion King, and that seemed to do quite well on the internet. People seem to be more interested in finding out why a movie about lions is really about Zionism than they are about what happens in Israel on September 17th. But this week's show, I think it's really important to start out with a news development that there was last night that has nothing to do with politics. Those of you who have been following my writing in the Jerusalem Post over the last more than 20 years know that an issue that I've written about nonstop that has nothing to do with politics is the fate of Israeli agent Jonathan Pollard. Jonathan Pollard spied for Israel in the United States, getting Israel crucial information for its security at a time when it was being withheld despite agreements made with him when he got caught to not seek a life sentence in return for him cooperating were not honored by America, and he did receive a life sentence disproportionate with his crime, and people convicted of spying for enemies received sentences that were much, much less than Pollard got for spying for an ally in what really, in retrospect, is a terrible miscarriage of justice. And then he finally, after 30 years in prison, was released, even though a life sentence in America at the time, now it's 30 years, at the time it was 45, so he got paroled. And people thought that meant that he could go free and he'd be sitting here relaxing with other American immigrants in Katamon or Arnona neighborhoods that are full of nice American retirees, Rechavia. But no, he was limited to New York. He lives in a very small apartment over there in New York with his wife Esther, and he has to follow very strict rules that don't really make a lot of sense. He has a curfew of having to be at home between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. There's a GPS that's monitoring him on his wrist at all times. If he goes to a bathroom where there isn't good reception, the FBI could be outside shortly thereafter. The device doesn't really fit very well with honoring Shabbat and holidays. His computers are monitored, which prevents him from being employed, and doesn't really make a lot of sense because he could actually meet with anyone. He can communicate. Things about him, these conditions, are very arbitrary. And how much could he really remember after being in prison for 30 years that would still be relevant today, that could harm American national security? Pollard has been for all this time is, number one, an example to other American Jews to not follow suit and not put Israel first. And number two, a bargaining chip to be used in the future in return for Israel releasing some terrible terrorist from prison, something that he's never been willing to be, or to get Israel to withdraw from land, something that he has been diametrically opposed to. And so this fight for Pollard's freedom has been going on now for more than 30 years. And it continues. And yesterday, though, we saw a different face of Jonathan Pollard. We saw Jonathan Pollard give a surprising interview. I wish it was to me, and that's okay. It was to Channel 2 in Israel. where he was interviewed not as much as a spy, as interesting as that is, but as a husband. Jonathan has a wife named Esther who married him while he was serving a life sentence. It takes a very tough woman to marry someone who's serving a life sentence in prison, and she's as tough as they get among the people that I have met in my life. And so Esther was recently diagnosed with breast cancer for the third time, which is absolutely terrible. And Pollard said in this interview that the cancer was particularly aggressive, and that because of these limitations that he has, he cannot adequately take care of her. He said, quote, "It's a matter of life and death. It's a human issue. I can't take care of my wife effectively. If my wife needs something in the middle of the night, I'm not mobile. I can't leave the apartment. I can't help." He said that after Esther had fought for his life for many years, now it was time for him to fight for hers. And so in part because of that, not only did he turn to Channel 12, but also to Netanyahu himself. Through Ron Dermer, he got to the prime minister. He asked for help. He asked for Netanyahu to specifically ask Donald Trump himself to commute his parole conditions so he could help his wife, ideally in Israel. Now, I don't know whether he's done his research on the treatment facilities in Israel for people with breast cancer. I can admit personally that my mother is also suffering from breast cancer for a third time, and it's very, very hard. And she is a citizen of both Israel and the United States and has decided that her care will be in America. Then again, she has health insurance in America, and they don't, the Pollards. So I sent a letter to Esther overnight after seeing the report, and telling her that I was saddened to hear about her condition and asking if I could help in any way, and telling her that about what my mother's going through also. And I got a response that the interview on TV didn't actually show how critical it is, that Esther's cancer has already metastasized and spread to her bones, and that makes a big difference. The chemo treatment and then surgery is going to incapacitate her for long periods of time. She'll be entirely dependent on Jonathan, who at this time is incapable of caring for her effectively because of his restrictions. He can't even accompany her to treatment or to doctors. So they are asking for follow-up to be done. And so that is in part why I did this show. There are a lot of people who are very strong supporters of Donald Trump, who listen to the Land of Israel network, and or close to big names, the pastors, who can maybe have an influence on the president. Perhaps there are religious Zionists who are very close to Netanyahu, or people close to religious Zionists who are close to Netanyahu. If you have influence on either of them and can help persuade them to have mercy on this couple who have had very, very awful lives, and get them to have some kind of mercy, do what you can. After the break, maybe we will get around to talking politics. Might as well. Stay with us.
I call for a vote.
I'm not voting for her.
Only an idiot would vote for me.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
You should know who to vote for.
Who are you going to vote for in the upcoming election? Hi, this is Josh Haston, host of Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network, full election news and analysis that you're not going to get anywhere else. That's the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Keep it locked in.
If you vote for me, all of your wildest dreams will come true.
And we're back here on Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com, where, as we said, it's 6 weeks away before our exciting Israeli election. And what I wanted to talk about was politicians saying things that are stupid, because that is a topic that has come up repeatedly over the last week. This topic first came up on Thursday. We're at the Knesset, where the parties are registering to be able to run in the September 17th election. Down to the wire it went, not knowing what would happen with the parties on the right, about whether they would end up uniting completely or uniting sort of. And one party that no one was talking about was Blue and White, because they were the issue last time. They united last time, Yesh Atid and the party of Benny Gantz. And so no one expected them to be the lead to the newspapers the following day. They were sending a rather low-level group of politicians to register them, one from Bogi's party, one from Gantz's party, and one from Lapid's party. Very nice. And for some reason, Gantz showed up too. Maybe he felt people had forgotten him, I don't know. And he went there and he shook hands with the judge, who heads the committee. No other party leader bothered doing that. He talked to the press a little bit, and he was usually saying the things that he's supposed to say, sticking to the script. But Yanir Kozin, the political correspondent for Army Radio right now, asked a question about joining Netanyahu's government. Now, Gantz has answered that question hundreds of times over the last couple weeks and knows how to answer the question. No, I'm not joining the government. No, Netanyahu, he has these cases against him. We can't join him. We want to form a unity government with whoever takes over for Netanyahu and Likud. That's the way he answers the question. But he didn't answer the question. So he just gave his answer that he gives to a question that he doesn't hear, which is, we're going to do what's right for the people of Israel. Well, the reporters heard this answer and they said, oh my God, he didn't rule out joining Netanyahu's government. And maybe he will join Netanyahu's government. And so for a half hour, that suddenly was leading the websites and going around social media and everything. The headline, Gantz doesn't rule out joining Netanyahu government. This could change everything. He hears that people are saying this. He runs back to the cameras and he says, I didn't hear him. I heard the question was aimed at the wrong ear. That's the ear where my M16 was all those years. And my hearing got lost in that ear because of all the shooting of the M16, which is a cute excuse, but it looked to people like a zigzag. And the cover of Yisrael Yom, the anti-Gantz pro-Netanyahu newspaper the following day, was Gantz zigzags and joining Netanyahu government. The Jerusalem Post also put it on the front page, not as prominently as other papers did. And I remember that night I tweeted, note to Gantz strategists, the election is less than 50 days away. Hide him under a rock. Don't let him talk to anyone. How obvious does that have to be? Now, another reason I'm talking about stupid politicians is that yesterday there was controversy over Yair Lapid putting out a video that was making fun of the ultra-Orthodox. And again, there was this uproar. How could he do this? Even inside his Blue and White party, people were condemning him for it. The ultra-Orthodox had a field day reiterating that they can't join a government with Blue and White because of Lapid and how terrible he is. And Lapid went and defended himself, and that's what people talked about all day. Today I'm sitting here, it's Tuesday morning Israel time, 11-something last night, reports came out that Bezalel Smotrich, one of the leaders of the United Right Party, made comments about how he wishes this could be a state governed by Jewish law, but it's not going to happen because other people disagree, and so we have to accept that. And so Lieberman attacked him already, and other politicians have been attacking him, and he said the words that Yair Lapid said yesterday. They will not shut my mouth. It sounds worse in Hebrew. Lo tistemu lanu et hapeh. You won't shut our... I guess it's bad in English and Hebrew too. And so my answer to this is that none of these should be headlines. I mean, the first time I saw what Benny Gantz said, I actually told the internet, give him a break, it's not a headline. But then, like, when it was a headline everywhere, of course it had to be a headline. It led the 8 o'clock news that night. And Yair Lapid led the news all day yesterday. Now Bezalel Smotrich, his headline is on the cover of papers. All they're doing is saying things that everybody knows. It's like Ahmed Tibi from the Arab Party saying, I wish Israel was an Arab country. Ooh. Bezalel Smotrich wants Mashiach to come. Ooh. Benny Gantz was in the army for a long time. Okay. Like, it just seems that we have an election where we have to put out headlines all the time, and so we magnify things that really aren't that big a deal. People have to accept that there are people that have views that are their views and aren't the views of the overwhelming majority of the people of Israel, and that's life over here. Fine, don't vote for them if you don't like their views. But I just think that people need to be a little bit less shocked when people say things that are obvious, and then they end up actually helping the people that by magnifying this, where we're keeping them in the headlines, we're actually helping them out and helping out whoever they're condemning and criticizing. And it doesn't really have to be that way. Their mouths shouldn't be silent, and we should be taking into proportion that it's really, really not that big a deal. They're not going to hide for the next 43 days. They are with us. Politicians, if you want to get my attention, say something surprising. Take us back to the journalistic adage of dog bites man not being the headline, man bites dog being a headline, which in Israel is a little bit more complicated because yesterday I was talking to my 7-year-old, and she said, dogs eat cats, right? And my 2-year-old interrupts before I could give an answer, and she says, no, cats eat dogs. And I thought, wow, the 2-year-old was raised here in Israel, and she sees cats as being very aggressive animals and dogs being cute and sweet. In America, a lot of people see it as the opposite, but this is her only reality that she knows, that cats are not pets, cats are on the street, cats chase after people, cats chase after dogs, cats chase after cars, cats are little cats are very, very aggressive animals. So in the end, it all winds up being perspective. So we'll see whether there'll be actual real headlines deserved of the excitement that this election is in the final 6 weeks. Stay tuned to www.jpost.com and to the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com. Thank you very much, and we'll have another great show next week.
Hi, this is Eve Harrow, host of Rejuvenation on the Land of Israel Network. You can hear a new show from me every Sunday, and every day of the week, shows from another one of my very talented fellow show hosts. Reach me, Eve, at thelandofisrael.com, and keep listening, everybody. We love your feedback. The Land of Israel, coming at you every day, every week. That's the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com.